The truth about success nobody tells you. Success does not begin the day you win. It begins the day you stop accepting defeat as your identity. There is a silent moment that comes to every human being. A moment when the world seems to whisper a lie so convincingly, so persistently, that most people never question it. The lie is simple. The lie says you are limited. The lie says you are ordinary. The lie says you must accept the life handed to you, and most people obey. They wake up. They move through routines they never chose. They silence the voice inside them that once dreamed without permission. They trade possibility for predictability. They trade purpose for comfort. They trade destiny for distraction. But what nobody tells you is that success was never something given. It was always something claimed. Success is not a gift. It is not luck. It is not even talent. It is a decision so absolute, so final, that the universe itself begins to reorganize around it. Look at the life of Thomas Edison. Thousands of failures, thousands of attempts that ended in darkness instead of light. But Edison never saw failure the way the world sees failure. He saw data, he saw feedback, he saw progress invisible to everyone else. While others saw defeat, he saw direction. The truth about success is that it begins long before the result appears. It begins in the invisible realm, in the territory of belief, because every empire you see in the physical world was first built in the mind. Before the wealth, there was a vision. Before the victory, there was a decision. Before the transformation, there was a moment when someone chose to believe in something that did not yet exist. This is the moment most people never reach. They wait for evidence before they believe. But success demands the opposite. Success demands belief before evidence. This is why most people never become who they were meant to be. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, but because they lack certainty. Certainty is power. When a man or woman becomes certain, truly certain, something changes. Their posture changes. Their voice changes. Their actions align with the future that only they can see. They stop negotiating with doubt. They stop asking permission from fear. They begin moving with purpose. Henry Ford once said that whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. This was not philosophy. This was law, because your mind is not a passive observer of reality. Your mind is the architect of reality. Every thought you repeat becomes a command. Every belief you accept becomes a blueprint. Every vision you hold becomes a destination. And here is the truth most people never realize. Your current life is not your final life. It is only a reflection of your current beliefs. Change the belief, and you change the blueprint. Change the blueprint, and you change the structure of your reality itself. This is why two people can stand in the same storm, and one is destroyed while the other is forged into something unbreakable. The storm was never the difference. The mind was. There will always be obstacles. There will always be rejection. There will always be moments when the world tests the strength of your vision. But those moments are not there to stop you. They are there to reveal you. Because pressure does not create strength. It reveals it. Inside you right now is a version of yourself that already knows what you are capable of. A version of yourself that does not hesitate. A version of yourself that does not shrink in the presence of difficulty. A version of yourself that acts with clarity, with precision, with certainty. But that version of you cannot emerge until you make one irreversible decision. The decision to stop identifying with your past. Your past is not your prison. It is your training ground. Every failure you endured was not punishment. It was preparation. Every rejection you faced was not a denial. It was redirection. Every moment of pain carved depth into your character. Every moment of struggle expanded your capacity. Every moment of doubt forced you to confront the one enemy that has always stood between you and greatness. Yourself. This is why the greatest victories are never external. They are internal. When Abraham Lincoln lost election after election, he was not just losing political races. He was confronting the limits of his own endurance. He was facing the temptation to quit. He was facing the seductive voice that whispers, maybe this isn't meant for you. But Lincoln refused to accept that voice as truth, he continued. And continuation is the difference between those who dream and those who become. Because success does not require perfection. It requires persistence. Persistence is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is invisible. It is the daily decision to continue when emotion fades. It is the discipline to act when motivation disappears. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. And those who master discipline master their destiny. The world does not reward intention. It rewards action, not once, not occasionally, but consistently. Consistency is what transforms effort into identity. At first, you act differently then. You think differently. Then you become different. And once you become different, everything begins to change, because the moment you change internally, the world begins to respond to you differently. Not because the world itself has changed, but because you have your standards rise, your tolerance for mediocrity disappears. The habits that once controlled you begin to lose their power. The distractions that once consumed your attention begin to feel empty, meaningless, irrelevant. You stop seeking comfort and you start seeking growth. This is where the real transformation begins. Most people are addicted to comfort. Comfort is predictable. Comfort is safe. Comfort asks nothing from you except obedience. But comfort is also the greatest prison ever created. It traps potential. It suffocates ambition. It convinces you that survival is enough when you were created for expansion. Success demands discomfort, not because discomfort is pleasant, but because discomfort is the doorway to evolution. Every time you step beyond what is familiar, you send a signal to your mind. You tell yourself without words that you are no longer the person you used to be. You prove through action that your identity is not fixed. It is fluid. It is expandable. It is under your control. This is how power is built. Not in a single moment of courage, but in thousands of small moments where you refuse to retreat into the safety of who you used to be. Andrew Carnegie understood this truth better than most. He arrived with nothing. No wealth, no privilege, no guarantee. But he possessed something far more valuable than resources. He possessed vision. He saw himself not as he was, but as he could become. And he aligned his actions with that vision long before the world recognized it. This is the secret most people never discover. You do not wait for proof before you act. You act as proof of who you are becoming. Because identity is not something you find. Identity is something you construct. Every disciplined action is a brick. Every refusal to quit is a foundation. Every moment you choose growth over comfort is another layer added to the architecture of your future self. And eventually, there comes a moment when the structure is complete. Not complete in achievement, but complete in achievement. You no longer question whether you are capable. You know you are. This knowing changes everything. Fear begins to lose its authority over you. Doubt begins to lose its voice. Obstacles begin to look smaller, not because they have changed, but because you have expanded beyond them. You begin to realize that the greatest barrier was never the external world. Hesitation is the silent killer of destiny. It steals years. It steals opportunities. It steals versions of yourself that never get the chance to exist. And it always disguises itself as logic. It tells you to wait. It tells you to prepare more. It tells you the timing is not right. But the truth is, timing will never feel right to the version of you that is afraid. Action creates clarity. Not the other way around. The people who shape the world are not the ones who feel ready. They are the ones who act despite uncertainty. Walt Disney was rejected, not once, not twice, but repeatedly. He was told he lacked creativity. He was told his ideas had no value. He was told to accept reality. But Disney understood something that rejection could not destroy. Reality is not something you accept. It is something you create. He held on to his vision when there was no evidence it would succeed. He continued when quitting would have been easier. He believed when disbelief would have been justified. And eventually, the world stepped into the reality he had already built in his mind. This is how all greatness is born. First in imagination, then in belief. Then in relentless action, your imagination is not a fantasy. It is a preview of the person you are capable of becoming, if you have the courage to act in alignment with it. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision that your future is more important than your fear. There will be days when the path feels endless, days when progress feels invisible, days when the results do not reflect the effort you have invested. These are the days that define you, because anyone can continue when progress is obvious. Anyone can persist when rewards are immediate. But the ones who achieve greatness are the ones who continue in silence, in uncertainty, in darkness. They understand that success is not built in the spotlight. It is built in the shadows. In the early mornings when no one is watching, in the late nights when exhaustion tempts surrender, in the quiet moments when you must decide again and again who you are committed to becoming. This commitment is everything, because the truth about success nobody tells you is that success is not something you pursue. It is something you embody. And embodiment begins with one decision, the decision to no longer live as who you have been, but to rise as who you were always meant to be. And the moment you make that decision, something invisible begins to shift inside you. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. The world does not stop to acknowledge it. But deep within your mind, a line has been crossed. A line between the person who waits and the person who creates, because waiting is the habit of the uncertain. Creation is the habit of the certain. Most people spend their lives waiting for confidence, waiting for approval, waiting for the perfect conditions that never arrive. They believe confidence comes before action, but this belief has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. Confidence is not given. Confidence is built. It is built every time you keep a promise to yourself. Every time you do what you said you would do, especially when you do not feel like doing it, you send a message to your subconscious mind. You tell yourself, I am someone who follows through. And the mind listens, the mind obeys. The mind reshapes your identity around that truth. This is why discipline is more powerful than motivation. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls. It disappears when discomfort appears, but discipline is structural. It remains when emotion fades. It carries you when inspiration abandons you. And over time, discipline does something extraordinary. It makes success inevitable, because success is not a single event. It is the accumulation of aligned actions, repeated long enough for reality to surrender to your will. This is the law that governs all achievement. Look at Napoleon Hill, who spent decades studying the most successful individuals of his time. He discovered that success was never accidental. It was always intentional. It was always preceded by a burning desire so intense that quitting was no longer an option. Desire is the beginning of everything. Not a weak interest, not a casual wish, but a desire that consumes hesitation, a desire that transforms obstacles into fuel, a desire that refuses compromise. When desire reaches that level, the mind begins to operate differently. It stops searching for excuses. It starts searching for solutions. It stops focusing on limitations. It starts focusing on possibilities. Because the mind, once directed by a definite purpose, becomes a force of creation. This is why clarity is power. A mind without clarity is like a ship without a destination. It drifts, it reacts. It allows external forces to dictate its direction. But a mind with clarity becomes unstoppable. Every action gains meaning. Every decision gains precision. Every moment becomes an opportunity to move forward. Clarity eliminates distraction. Distraction is the enemy of greatness. It fragments your focus. It weakens your momentum. It keeps you emotionally attached to things that do not serve your future. The modern world is engineered to steal your attention. Endless noise, endless comparison, endless information designed to keep you mentally occupied but spiritually stagnant. But those who achieve greatness develop a rare ability. They protect their focus. They understand that focus is not just about concentration. It is about elimination. It is about removing everything that does not align with who you are becoming. Because every moment you spend focused on what does not matter is a moment stolen from what does. This is why the most successful individuals are ruthless with their attention. They do not allow their environment to control their mind. They control their mind, and in doing so, they control their environment. Your environment will always try to pull you back into familiarity. It will try to remind you of who you used to be. It will try to keep you consistent with your past identity. But growth requires separation. You cannot become someone new while clinging to everything that belongs to your old self. This does not mean abandoning your humanity. It means abandoning your limitations. It means refusing to participate in conversations that shrink your vision. It means refusing to adopt beliefs that weaken your conviction. It means refusing to live according to expectations that were never designed for your greatness, because greatness is never inherited. It is built brick by brick, decision by decision, action by action. There will be moments when the distance between where you are and where you want to be feels overwhelming. Moments when the vision feels too large. Moments when doubt whispers that you are not enough. In those moments, remember this truth. You do not have to see the entire path. You only have to take the next step, the next disciplined action, the next courageous decision, the next moment of refusing to surrender to the smaller version of yourself. Because success does not require speed. It requires direction. As long as you are moving forward, as long as you are aligning your actions with your purpose, as long as you refuse to quit, you are already becoming the person capable of achieving what once felt impossible. This is how transformation happens. Not all at once, but inevitably, and inevitably, and inevitability is the most powerful position you can ever reach. Because when something becomes inevitable in your mind, it becomes unstoppable in your reality. Inevitability is born the moment you remove retreat as an option. When quitting is no longer part of your identity, your mind begins to function differently. It stops searching for escape routes. It stops negotiating with discomfort. It channels all its energy into one purpose, forward movement. This is where ordinary people separate from the architects of destiny. Ordinary people act based on emotion. Architects act based on decision. Emotion says, this is hard. Decision says, this is necessary. Emotion says, I am tired. Decision says, I continue. Emotion says, maybe tomorrow. Decision says, now. Your future is not shaped by how you feel. It is shaped by what you do despite how you feel. This is why self-mastery is the foundation of all external mastery. You cannot command your world until you command yourself. Your thoughts must become disciplined. Your actions must become intentional. Your standards must become unbreakable, because standards determine destiny. You will never rise above what you tolerate. If you tolerate distraction, you will live a distracted life. If you tolerate excuses, you will live an excuse-driven existence. If you tolerate mediocrity, you will experience mediocrity as your permanent reality. But the moment you raise your standards, everything begins to change. You begin to demand more from yourself. You begin to expect excellence from your actions. You begin to eliminate behaviors that contradict the person you are committed to becoming. This is not punishment. This is alignment. Alignment between your vision and your behavior, because the truth is, your life is always moving in the direction of your strongest habits. Habits are not small things. They are the architects of your identity. Every repeated action is a vote. A vote for the person you are becoming. When you choose discipline, you vote for strength. When you choose focus, you vote for clarity. When you choose persistence, you vote for resilience. And over time, those votes accumulate. They form an identity. And identity is the most powerful force in human behavior, because once something becomes part of your identity, it no longer requires effort. It becomes natural, automatic, permanent. This is why the most successful individuals do not fight themselves every day. They have conditioned themselves to operate at a higher standard. They do not negotiate with distraction. They do not entertain weakness. They do not wait for motivation. They act because that is who they are. Thomas Edison did not succeed because he was lucky. He succeeded because he became the type of person who refused to accept defeat as final. Failure was not an identity. It was an event, temporary, informational, necessary. This is how you must begin to see your own obstacles. Not as verdicts, but as lessons, not as endings, but as refinements. Every obstacle contains instruction. Every setback contains feedback. Every difficulty contains the raw material of your future strength. But only if you refuse to interpretation. Interpretation is power. Two people can experience the same failure, and one becomes weaker while the other becomes unstoppable. The difference is not the event. The difference is the meaning they assign to it. Meaning shapes belief. Belief shapes action. Action shapes destiny. This is why protecting your mind is not optional. It is essential. Your mind must become a place where possibility is stronger than limitation, where vision is louder than doubt, where purpose is stronger than fear, because the external world will always attempt to impose its limitations on you. It will tell you what is realistic. It will tell you what is probable. It will tell you what has been done before. But greatness has never been created by those who accepted probability. Greatness is created by those who operate from certainty. Certainty that their vision matters. Certainty that their actions matter. Certainty that their persistence will eventually bend reality in their favor. Henry Ford was told his vision was impossible. They said the world did not need automobiles accessible to ordinary people. They said it could not be done. But Ford did not ask for permission from the present. He acted from the authority of the future he saw in his mind, and eventually the world adjusted. This is the pattern that repeats throughout history. The individual sees before others see, believes before others believe, acts before others understand, and in doing so they create what others once thought impossible. This is your responsibility, not to follow the world as it is, but to help create the world as it can be. Because inside you is the same force that built empires, discovered truths, and reshaped history. But that force only awakens under one condition: total commitment. Half commitment produces half results. Half belief produces half transformation. Half effort produces half a life. But when commitment becomes absolute, transformation becomes unavoidable. You stop testing yourself. You start trusting yourself. You stop hoping. You start knowing. And knowing is the beginning of personal power. Knowing changes the way you move through the world. You no longer walk with hesitation. You no longer speak with uncertainty. There is a quiet authority in your presence, not because you have already achieved everything, but because you know with unshakable certainty that you are on the path. And the path itself begins to reveal you. Because the truth about success nobody tells you is that success is not something you chase. It is something you grow into. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming more of who you already are beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, beneath the conditioning that taught you to play small. There was a time in your life when you did not question your potential, when you believed without evidence, when you imagined without limitation. But over time, the world began to place weight on your shoulders. It taught you to measure yourself against external standards. It taught you to seek approval before action. It taught you to silence the voice that once guided you. But that voice never disappeared. It waited. It waited beneath the noise, beneath the distractions, beneath the layers of uncertainty you accumulated through years of hesitation. And when you choose discipline, when you choose clarity, when you choose purpose, that voice begins to rise again. It reminds you of something the world tried to make you forget. You are not here to exist. You are here to create. Creation requires courage. It requires the willingness to step into the unknown without guarantees. It requires the willingness to face rejection without surrendering identity. It requires the willingness to endure temporary darkness without abandoning your internal light. Because every meaningful transformation begins in darkness. A seed does not grow in open air. It grows beneath the surface, in silence, in isolation. For a long time, there is no visible evidence of progress, nothing to validate its potential, nothing to confirm its destiny. But beneath the surface, everything is changing. Roots are forming. Strength is building. The foundation is expanding in preparation for what will eventually break through into the light. This is where most people quit. They quit because they cannot see the roots forming. They quit because they mistake invisibility for stagnation. They quit because they expect external proof before internal development is complete. But those who achieve greatness understand something others do not. They understand that invisible progress is still progress. They understand that who they are becoming matters more than what they are currently seeing, because what you see is always a delayed reflection of who you have been, and what you consistently become will eventually appear in physical form. Walt Disney carried his vision in his mind long before it existed in reality, before the parks, before the recognition, before the legacy. There was only belief in something no one else could see clearly. That belief guided his actions. It shaped his decisions. It sustained him through rejection, through financial hardship, through moments when surrender would have been easier than persistence. But he continued, because vision, when protected, becomes prophecy. And your vision, if protected, will become your reality. But protection requires discipline. You must guard your mind against doubt, not the natural doubt that appears as part of growth, but the destructive doubt that attempts to convince you to abandon your path entirely. Not every voice deserves your attention. Some voices exist only to keep you consistent with your past. Some voices exist only to protect their own limitations by projecting them onto you. You must learn to distinguish between the voice of fear and the voice of truth. Fear speaks in hesitation. Truth speaks in clarity. Fear tells you to wait. Truth tells you to act. Fear tells you to act. Fear tells you you are not ready through action. Action is the bridge between who you are and who you are becoming. Without action, vision remains fantasy. Without action, belief remains theory. Without action, potential remains trapped. But when you act, even imperfectly, you activate transformation. Because action teaches what thought alone never can. Action builds momentum. Action builds identity. Momentum is powerful. At first, progress feels slow, heavy, resistant. Every step requires effort. Every decision requires conscious discipline. But over time, something begins to shift. The effort decreases, the resistance weakens. The habits strengthen. And what once felt impossible begins to feel natural. This is the compounding effect of discipline. Small actions repeated consistently create massive transformation over time, not because each action is extraordinary, but because consistency is extraordinary. Consistency separates interest from commitment. Anyone can act once. Anyone can act when it is convenient. But those who achieve greatness act regardless of convenience. They act because their future demands it. They act because their identity requires it. They act because they understand that success is not an event waiting for them in the distance. It is a process unfolding within them in the present. And every moment they honor that process, they move closer to becoming unstoppable. And unstoppable does not mean you never feel fear. It means fear no longer decides your direction. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be moments when the outcome is unclear, when the results are invisible, when the distance between your present reality and your future vision feels overwhelming. But in those moments, you must remember something that the world rarely teaches. You are not built to remain as you are. You are built to expand. Expansion is not comfortable. Expansion requires you to release the identity that once protected you. It requires you to step beyond the familiar version of yourself and enter a space where nothing feels guaranteed except your own commitment. This is the price of transformation. Most people never pay this price, not because they are incapable, but because they are unwilling to endure the temporary discomfort required to access permanent growth. They wait for certainty before they move. But certainty is not given in advance. Certainty is earned through action. Each step forward strengthens you. Each act of discipline reshapes you. Each moment you refuse to retreat reinforces the truth that you are no longer controlled by who you used to be, because your past has no authority over your future unless you continue to obey it. You are not your past failures. You are not your past limitations. You are not the person who doubted, hesitated, or retreated. You are the person who decided to rise. And rising is not a single moment. It is a daily act of defiance against weakness. It is waking up with purpose when comfort invites you back to sleep. It is continuing when results are delayed. It is believing when evidence is silent. This is where true power is formed, not in the moments when everything is easy, but in the moments when everything demands more from you than you thought you could give. And you give more anyway, because deep within you is a force greater than circumstance, a force that does not depend on approval, a force that does not require permission, a force that grows stronger every time you honor your vision instead of abandoning it. This force is your will, and your will, when fully activated, becomes stronger than fear, stronger than doubt, stronger than any obstacle placed in your path. This is why some individuals rise from nothing and reshape the world, while others remain trapped in cycles they never chose consciously. The difference is not opportunity. The difference is decision. Abraham Lincoln faced defeat more times than most people could endure. Loss after loss, failure after failure. But he was not defined by those defeats. He was defined by his refusal to stop. He did not wait for the world to validate him. He validated himself through persistence, and persistence transforms the impossible into the inevitable. This is the final truth about success. Nobody tells you. Success is not something you reach. It is something you become. It is not found at the end of a path. It is formed in the person you build with every disciplined action, every courageous decision, every moment you refuse to surrender your vision. Long before the world sees your success, you will feel it within yourself. You will feel it in the way you think, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you no longer seek permission to pursue what calls you forward. You will realize that success was never hiding from you. It was waiting for you to align with it, waiting for you to think differently, waiting for you to act differently, waiting for you to become someone who no longer negotiates with doubt. And on that day, you will understand something that changes you forever. You will understand that success was never about proving the world wrong. It was about proving yourself. Right? You will see that every moment of discipline was shaping you. Every moment of pain was strengthening you. Every moment of uncertainty was refining you into someone capable of carrying the weight of your destiny. And you will no longer fear the future, because you will know with absolute certainty that the person you have become is capable of creating any future you decide to pursue. You will walk forward, not as someone hoping for success, but as someone embodying it, not as someone wishing for change, but as someone who has become changed, not as someone searching for permission, but as someone who has claimed their power. And from that moment forward, your life will no longer be defined by the limits you once accepted, but by the limitless force you chose to become.